So I get him. I bring him over to the hotel room. I open the door. She goes, "What are you doing back? I thought you had cold." I go, "Yeah, but I know you weren't feeling good, and I got something for you to cheer you up." She's like, "Okay, what'd you get?" And he comes through the door. "Hey, mommy!" And she loses it.
Cried. And even now, thinking of that, I mean, he had visited a friend just up the road. I mean, he was 2 miles from where we were. And he was in front of a mall, and he had the right of way. And his best buddy or one of his best buddies, was in a truck next to him. And they were stopped at a traffic light, and everything was fine, well, and good. And they were moving along side by side, and they came up to the next light, and a unlicensed 16-year-old failed to yield right of way, turned in front of him, and he took the evasive action. And he was only 150 pounds, and the bike was a big one. And the torque of his movement, and then the impact, he broke his neck. He was gone before he hit the ground. And you know what? I think that's probably the greatest gift out of the whole ordeal, because Tweety said by the time he got out of his truck and got to Kyle never moved. And even the witnesses said he was smiling as he was going down, he gave a thumbs up to his buddy, started to move forward, and they said he hit and never moved. And for us, it was hard, because we felt like, okay, we didn't get a chance to say goodbye. But you know what we did? Because just a little while, that day, he had taken me to the doctor's appointment. We had lunch together. And
my office.
Came to his office, visited him, saw all the people. And we had lunch, and we had had a house fire 4 months before this event. And we were staying in an extended stay motel while we were figuring out what we were going to do. And like I said, I lived here back before we got married. And we always loved Savannah. And we always knew that at some point, somehow, we were going to end up back down here. I mean, that was always the plan. So we're sitting at lunch, and Kyle's saying, Mom, you guys just ought to just go to Savannah. And I'm like, well, honey, it's so much more complex than that. I said, you've got to have money to do that kind of a move and, have a job and have a place. And at that time, my work wasn't letting me work remote. That wasn't the thing. And he's like, no, you need to do it. And I said, well, just money isn't, that's just, you can't always just up and do it. And he said, well, you really should. And we were like, okay. And then we had to go to the car rental place. So we dropped Kevin back off at work. Kevin gave him a hug, love you, buddy, headed out, back upstairs. And then we went to Enterprise to book the rental car for him to drive back to Pensacola on Tuesday, because that's when he had to report back. And we were standing around waiting to get it taken care of, and it happened to be one of those rental places that have the sale vehicles too, after the leases are over. And he's always been a car kid. Oh my gosh.
Especially Mustang.
Yeah, Mustangs were his all-time favorite. He could tell you. Yep. He had books that we found after he died of vehicles that he wanted to get and what he wanted to do with them in his own handwriting. And so it was really funny. So he took me to this Ford Fusion, okay? And I hate to go car shopping if I don't have the money to do it, because I think that's just teasing. And, it's one of those things I don't do. I don't go car shopping if I can't afford to buy it. I don't go shopping at the mall if I can't afford to just do it. And so he has me sitting in this car, and he's like, Mom, it's got this and that, and a sunroof, and this would be perfect for you. And I'm like, okay, I'm indulging you, but, we really need to get on. So we went on back to the extended stay, and we had gotten him and his brother a room to themselves. Because the guys always did things together, bonded together, the whole 9 yards. So I said, I need to take a nap, because tonight we're going out to eat, we're going to go here, there, and this, that, and the other. And we had gone out the night before to a place called the Semper Fi Grill. And it is run by a former Marine, because there's no such thing as an ex-Marine. former Marine, yeah, see, I know, who has this place, and it's open for all service members. And we happened to go in there the night before, and one of his buddies from Basic was in there. So they sat in there talking about their time during Basic and shooting the breeze about all of that, and drink till about 1 in the morning. We got pictures of him and his buddy and all of this, and it was really cool. So we knew we were going to be going out again that night, and I'm like, look, if I don't get a nap, I'm not going to be worth a thing. So he said, okay, you take a rest. I'm going to go visit Tweety. And that was at 3:30 in the afternoon. And, you know, he's like, I love you. He gave me a hug. He left. And called me when he was a little bit late saying, okay, I'm just now leaving. I'll be home by 5 o'clock. You know, I'll see you when I get there. And then he called at 5 and he said, it was raining just a little bit. I'm going to let the roads dry, which, as you know, weather in Atlanta, if you don't like it, give it 5 minutes. It'll change. Yeah. And so, you know, it had dried up. No problem. Roads weren't even wet by the time he left the Home Depot. And, we got a call from the police department. And they said, well, we want to talk about your son. And I'm like, okay, was it him or his brother? Because I got two. And they said, we want to come talk to you. And Kevin took the call, and I'm like, wait a minute, Kyle's late. And he said, yeah? I said, Kyle's never late. Something's wrong. And he says, you can't be sure. And I'm like, yeah, I can. I feel it. There's something wrong. Something has happened. And he's like, you're being, I'm like, no. I know that there's something wrong. And he's trying to keep me calm. And I'm like, I feel it. I know it. And he says, well, maybe he's been hurt. I said, no. They just told us where to go. There is something bad has happened.
Friends of a Cobb County Marine killed in an accident are remembering him as someone who could make friends instantly. The Lassiter High School grad died in a crash this weekend. He was in town on leave to help his mother deal with a planned surgery. Channel 2's Ross Cavett is live at the crash scene with the investigation into the crash that is still not finished. Ross.
Police are still working on it. A horrible story. A 21-year-old Marine with the rest of his life ahead of him died at the intersection behind me here near the Town Center Mall. Some friends had put up a small cross here in his memory at this intersection. Those who knew the Lassiter High grad are grieving, as well as those who knew him where the young Marine was stationed hundreds of miles away in Pensacola.
Give him one! Yeah! Give him one! Yeah!
Dozens of fellow Marines and other military shouted to the heavens at the Pensacola Naval Air Station in memory of Kyle Bowersox. The video posted on social media has already been watched tens of thousands of times. Young Lassiter High grad had followed his father into the Marine Corps and seemed to attract friends as easily as he did at home.
That's just how he lived his life. I don't think you could ever catch him on a bad day.
Once he hit the ground, he never moved.
Shamanique Maddox happened to be walking down a nearby sidewalk when the tragic wreck that claimed the Marine's life unfolded in front of her. A car driven by a 16-year-old Cherokee High student had turned in front of Bowersox's motorcycle. The young Marine tried to avoid the car but slammed into the rear of it. The image haunts her.
Just from seeing how when I seen him pass, and just to know that he didn't know that he was going to be gone that quick.
Police administered a sobriety test to the teen driver. They say charges are pending. Hundreds have already shared their memories of the 21-year-old Bowersox on social media, including a page made in his honor, which his friends and family tell me might have embarrassed the young Marine.
His father was telling me Kyle's never one that wanted any limelight, but I think that he affected people so deeply that they want his story out there.
Had it not been, well, in some respects, I'll be honest, after the accident, I beat myself up terrible of the thought, had it not been for me, he wouldn't have been home and this wouldn't have happened. And it took a great deal of time. I'm talking a couple of years before I could finally see the totality of everything. Well, okay, if he hadn't been home, I wouldn't have talked to him. I wouldn't have spoke to him, because when your time is up, it doesn't matter if you're sitting in your living room or flying in an airplane, standing in the shower, or, you know, wherever, it's your time. And so It took a long time for me to come to that, but I would beat myself up. But I thought, I wouldn't have had that hug. I wouldn't have had that last opportunity for him to be able to tell me goodbye. And I can't imagine how, sorry, I can't imagine how it would have been not for our final words to be loving and caring. I just, and having him taken from me, I knew it was not his choice. Kyle sang karaoke, and in honor of his grandmother who passed away before he was born, he sang the song Holes in the Floor of Heaven by Steve Wariner. We had that recorded as part of the contest that he was in. He sang that at his own funeral. And so with his SGLI money, we bought the house. We bought the car that he sat me in that day. We bought the truck because he had laid out for us exactly the plan and what he wanted us to do. We knew. So the fact that he was gone in an instant, it was hard, but we knew he didn't suffer. And he had already laid out a path of the journey that we were supposed to take. And I can't imagine how differently things would have been had he not. Had we had to question, had we had to wonder what would he have wanted to. He told us. And moments before he died, he had called me, and the last words were, I love you, Mom. Of all the titles I had, I served a short time in the Army. My dad was a Marine. My grandfather was a Marine. My brother was a Marine. Kevin's a Marine. Kyle was a fourth-generation Marine, and I had all the titles, niece and goddaughter and everything else. The only one I really never wanted and never imagined would be Marine Corps Gold Star Mom. And that's the hardest one to live with, because you're living without somebody else.